It's a homecoming of sorts, the path less taken. After years of poor trail conditions forced the race to the north, the Iditarod returns to its southern route once again. Amid long-standing traditions and renewed controversies, more than 60 mushers will take to the trail to challenge 1,000 miles of Alaska's most isolated land. Mushers and their teams will endure brutal weather extremes and hours of isolation. But a warm reception and a hot meal makes the distance a little more bearable. Whether you're first or last, it takes strength and stamina to cross that finish line. And it all starts today, live in downtown Anchorage. Iditarod 46.
Good morning and welcome to Channel 2's coverage of Iditarod 46. I'm John Carpenter along with Libby Riddles. We're in the studio. That's a beautiful shot of downtown where the racers will be taking off in just a few minutes. And number 33, go ahead, you pronounce his name.
Your Liftsef Olsson.
That's good. That's
Pretty
what
close.
I would have said. Yeah, that's exactly what I would say.
Fastest rookie to have ever run the Iditarod.
Unbelievable, yes. Never finished out of the top 7. Ever.
Yeah, and he was second in the Cusco, which, like I said, was extremely tough this year. He's got amazing control over his dogs and just a really super bond with them.
He's got a super team. He finished 4th last year, 6th in both of 2016 and 2015. He was 4th in 2014 and 7th in 2013, which was his rookie year. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, and the guy is just, he seems like bomb-proof. He's just like a pretty rock-steady guy, and the dogs must pick up on that too.
Yes, confident but quiet, and to me, it's this is a team to look out for.
There you go, Hugh. He's always a great character to have in the race, and he won't be last place for long, that's for sure.
No, 2004 Rookie of the Year, and I got to know Hugh a little bit when he was running the Yukon Quest, and I was covering that race. We talked with you before you hit the starting line. Let's hear what he had to say.
This is the year that I'm going to try to prove that I'm not getting older. So this is my 32nd 1,000-miler since 2000, my 14th Iditarod. This is Havana's 8th. And, you know, as you get older, you realize that it's not about what place you come in, it's about loving life. You got every year in the Iditarod, the beauty of the Iditarod is there's so many beautiful dogs. So I don't really care what place I come in, I just want to have fun.
With day 1 of the Iditarod already in the books, tonight race leaders are closing in on Roan.
Keeping track of it all, our Nikki Carvajal joining us from the Trail Tracker set with how the race is progressing so far. Nikki?
Well, hey, Mike and Rebecca, the top 20 mushers are out of Rainy Pass and making their way towards the Roan checkpoint at mile 188. So here are the current standings right now. Jesse Holmes is leading the pack, followed by Richie Deal, Wade Mars, Ryan Reddington, and Nick Petit. And we caught up with the front runners at the Rainy Pass checkpoint. Here's what some of them had to say.
It's a new trail we took. I mean, we haven't gone this way in years, you know. Then we took this new trail to avoid the, what I call the Doug Swingley Glacier. And now we got a little McKinley that I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me, already?
The trail breakers did an awesome job of setting up every sharp corner for a dog team, what it needs to get around obstacles, and they just did. I was amazed. They, like, any branch that would slap you in the face or a dog, they cut out of the way. I mean, they really did an amazing job.
Loving it. It's nice. Nice to be back over this way for sure.
Channel 2's Patrick Enslow joins us from McGrath to tell us how this sibling rivalry is shaping up on the trail. Hey, Patrick.
Nikki, as the front runners make their way to the McGrath checkpoint, we expect Ryan and Ray Reddington to be among those top teams.
I'm not up front like my brother. He's got a lot faster run times and stuff than I do, but here pretty quick we're gonna have to start doing some long runs. You know, he's been rotating dogs behind me. I followed him pretty much since
That was
probably,
Ray Reddington Jr. talking about his brother Ryan's team in Rainy Pass, and what he said seemed to remain true all the way through today, with the younger Reddington currently in 3rd place. Ryan is looking for his first ever top 10 finish after taking 14th in last year's race and taking home, the 2017 Iditarod's Most Improved Musher Award. Now, while Ryan looks to prove himself, older brother Ray's track record on the trail speaks for itself. 5 top 10 finishes in the past 7 years. And there are actually 3 Reddingtons on the trail. The other Reddington is Robert Reddington, obviously a very famous family among this race.
After dealing with temperatures of 65 degrees below zero during this year's Yukon Quest, warmer temperatures and a lot of fresh snow like the stuff that's falling here in McGrath right now are welcome relief for musher Hugh Neff and his team. Some say age is just a number. But if you ask veteran musher Hugh Neff,
Any teenagers.
I know.
Bib number 68.
Time and a lot of miles.
All right. I just turned 50. I'm getting lazy.
Are starting to take their toll.
No, I'm claiming it. I was talking with Mitch earlier about this essential oils that he's using for his back and stuff because, you know, this is my 32nd 1,000-miler since 2000, so I'm pretty wiped out.
But that hasn't stopped he and his team of veterans from competing, taking it easy on this year's Iditarod Trail after a rough Yukon Quest.
This is pretty nice, isn't it? I love the Quest, but sometimes the Iditarod is very posh living.
And on that note, while his older dogs are going strong...
So I got 2 10-year-olds in here, Amigo and Wheel, and his brother George Costanza, 2 ahead staring at us.
The older Neff has an idea to accommodate the over 50 crowd.
We need masseuses at every checkpoint. I mean, that's going to be my new deal. I'm going to talk about it at the next meeting.
It's an idea he's certain will go over well with other mushers, one that would keep him coming back for years to come. There are 17 mushers racing in this year's Iditarod who are either 50 years old or older, and that includes 77-year-old musher Jim Lanier. And Nikki, I don't know about you, I know you've covered the race out on the trail before. Hugh makes a pretty good point about having a masseuse at every checkpoint. Patrick, you, my friend, are doing an amazing job.
I appreciate it, bud.
Yeah, hey,
I'm trying my best.
I didn't tell you to stop, man. Harder on the shoulders. Nikki?
Yeah, Blake actually works that into his contract, believe it or not. Well, on that note, for all the latest on the race, you can check out KTUU.com, and we'll be back at 10 with another look at the trail conditions. And we're not even at the halfway point of the race yet, but the mushers are starting to take their layovers, so the race is starting to take shape. Now, mushers describe snowy conditions, which they say can be hard on large male dogs. 4-time Iditarod champ Jeff King says that snow is wet enough that it's slowing things down. He says the soft terrain is harder on some dogs than others, and he had to drop his biggest dog because the conditions were too hard on him. And we caught up with Jeff out in Ophir, where he said he'd like to see the race have a new champion this year.
CV Dynasty's been fun to watch, but I'm really anxious for it to be over, and I am excited for Yor making a move to get out in front. What a great guy and a great thing it would be for the race.
Now, King is currently in 8th place, and he is still resting right now in Ophir. Well, it's been 3 years since Aaron Burmeister has taken to the Iditarod Trail, but 2018 will be his 18th race to Nome. Channel 2's Patrick Enslow caught up with the veteran musher at the McGrath checkpoint to discuss this year's race. Hi, Patrick.
Nikki, to put it in perspective, Aaron Burmeister began mushing in the Iditarod around the same year I was born, and he says this year the trail is reminding him that he's not 20 anymore.
It's something I've done my whole life. Everything is like riding a bike. Most of it's all instinct anymore. This is my 18th Iditarod, and the biggest challenge, getting older. My body hurts in places it's not used to hurting it.
Burmeister spent his layover in McGrath switching sleds after his original got beaten up through the Dawsell Gorge, taking on water. Now, the veteran musher says he will be happy with a top 10 finish, which he has taken in 4 out of his past 5 Iditarods.
Well, the race is halfway over, but the current frontrunner may be second-guessing his strategy. All of the top 5 mushers are into the Iditarod checkpoint of Iditarod, led by Yor Leifseth Olsson, who decided to take his 24-hour layover there. He's joined by Lars Monson, Nick Petit, and Jeff King, who still has not taken his 24 yet. But Olsum says trail breaking with the conditions as snowy as they are has been really difficult, and he's not sure it was worth it.
Basically, since leaving my crat, I've been standing on one runner, kicking the whole freaking way. And, you know, there's a lot of pressure on one foot, and it's like taking 3 million squats when you're kicking. And basically, I had to kick the whole way just to keep the sled going through the snow, so I think I was just aching too much.
That does not sound fun. Now, Olsum will be done with his 24 in a few hours. In this year's Iditarod, there are 16 female mushers, and since the race was first run in 1973, only 5 women have ever cracked the top 5. 3 of them are DeeDee Jonrowe, Ali Zirkle, and Jessie Royer, and they're all competing this year. Of course, DeeDee Jonrowe scratched a few days ago at Rainy Pass, but Channel 2's Blake Essig says the other 2 are going strong. Hi, Blake.
Well, Nikki, we caught up with Jessie and Ali while they were taking their 24-hour layover just up the river into Katna. Now, while the race is still in its early stages, both Ali and Jessie feel very good about their chances.
What do you think? Well, hello. How's it going?
Currently, Jessie Royer and Ali Zirkle are sitting in 9th and 10th place, respectively. As of right now, the 2 are running side by side on their way to the Iditarod checkpoint. Each are expected to arrive at any moment. Although neither Ali or Jessie have won the Iditarod, the 2 are the fastest women to complete the Iditarod trail, with Zirkle holding a 2-minute edge over Royer. A stat that they aren't concerned with, saying it doesn't matter if you're male or female, they're all just out here running dogs, focused on the trail ahead.
I bet you could ask any one of us, and not one of us would even have it crossed our minds that we're a female in the top 10. We're just here because we love running dogs, and we love what we do.
I don't ever really look ahead. I mean, I do have a strategy that lines out how I want to run the race, but I don't look at trying to get to Caltag or, gosh, I really look forward to Uniclete or something. It just seems so far away that if you look at it like that, I think you overwhelm yourself.
And both Ali and Jessie are expected to contend for this year's title. Now, the last time that a woman won the Iditarod was 1990, when 4-time Iditarod champion Susan Butcher won her final crown. Reporting from McGrath, Blake Essig, Channel 2 News.
Well, most of our time reporting on the Iditarod is spent telling you who's in the lead or who we think is going to win. But today, Channel 2's Patrick Enslow fills us in on what it's like to mush in the back of the pack. Hi, Patrick.
Nikki, we just wrapped up our time at the McGrath checkpoint, and we spent time with some teams that are probably not really in this race or don't have a shot at winning it. But what we did discuss is, what is it like to be in the back of the pack? And here's what those teams had to say.
I'm currently the red lantern of the race. This is a cool sport in that the red lantern is revered. The person who comes in last usually has to put up with the most. It's felt that way. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way.
The advantage we have, you know, being in the back of the pack, you can like actually take your time a little bit and enjoy the trail and like, you know, and see what's around and see things and look at things.
You see worse trail, like a lot of places through the mountains get hollowed out and gorged out real bad from the front half of the field. And then when you're in the back half, you come down, you know, it's just crazy what you run into.
The trail is completely different when I go through than when the front teams go through. Whether it's better or worse, I guess we're yet to figure that out.
I'm taking lots of rest. I'm getting a chance to sleep. They've got no interest in, you know, where I'm placing or worried about 0.1 of a mile an hour.
I feel confident the rest of the race is going to go better than the previous. Very good. Thank you.
Oh, hey, good luck, guys. 29-year-old Robert Reddington, the youngest of the Reddingtons facing the 2018 Iditarod, has become the 4th scratch of this race, dropping out in Shagaluk. He did make that decision to scratch in, quote, the best interest of his team, according to a statement from the Iditarod Trail Committee. But as for those who have hung on even through that rough weather, they've been led for the most of the race by current leader, Girdwood musher Nick Petit, a man who says he has no real plan, yet he stayed near the front of the pack. So who is he and what's his strategy? Channel 2's Blake Essig is here trying to figure it out. Hi, Blake.
And Beth, we've asked Nick Petit about his race strategy several times since before the race even started, and The guy is a stonewall. Well, it's either that or he really truly is just figuring it out as he goes.
It's been 8 years since Nick Petit first ran the last great race on Earth. And despite 4 top 10 finishes, his plan...
I'll signature.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Nick, we'll bring you your bag.
Well, he prefers to shoot from the hip.
Planning sucks. Planning sucks.
A mentality that seems to fit his self-description as a musher.
Dirtbag ski bum. I started running dogs kind of like you would be, a ski bum who would go skiing. So, you got some dogs? You need some help? Sure.
Back in 2011, he made his Iditarod debut by accident, running then 72-year-old Jim Lanier's team after he blew out his hip.
Things like that happen.
Petit was working for him as a handler at the time.
I took this team and did the Iditarod, and it worked out pretty good. He told me I did better than he ever does.
In part crediting the veteran musher for advice he received back then for success so far on this year's trail.
I just followed his instruction. He said, stay away from the back of the pack because sour dogs, or dog fights or bacteria. So you can get out front, away from all those. You get parked by yourself. Works out good. Thank you, Jim Lanier, for the good pointer.
But for the dirtbag ski bum musher without a real plan...
2 checkpoints where I thought I might do it 24, so this is going to be some lucky local dogs.
He has a strong interest in where he stands in the race.
Let me see that checker. Checker! I want to see that board.
And plan or no plan.
Dogs are looking good, so I'm feeling good.
It seems to be working.
With Nome less than 300 miles for some of these teams, many are beginning to make those final pushes up the western coast of Alaska. Now we check in with Channel 2 Sports Director Patrick Enslow. He joins us live from Unalakleet with reaction from those first teams to reach that coast. Patrick?
Beth, Nick Petit shows no signs of letting up, clearly controlling the pace of this race. He left the Unalakleet checkpoint at 6:55 on Sunday. It's beginning to become a familiar sight. Nick Petit leading into another checkpoint, but if you ask him, it's more of a food break.
I'm hungry, and there's bacon.
As for the plan, well, that hasn't changed. He still doesn't have one.
I don't ever do the same thing, so I just kind of read the weather, read the dogs, and hope for the best.
To be this successful late in the race, it all comes down to dogs, and Petits are ready to go.
I do see that a certain step, that Nick has. He's bouncing around pretty good, and we're real happy with his team. They ate like horses.
Second to the Unalakleet checkpoint was defending Iditarod champion Mitch Seavey, arriving nearly 4 hours after Petit.
One thing after another.
Shortly after Seavey got to the checkpoint, your Leifsef Olsson would arrive, just as Petit packed up to leave, taking a lighter approach up the coast.
I already took out 50 pounds of extra weight from the sled.
Petit says there's still plenty of time and knows anything can happen in this race, but the next 24 hours will likely be make or break for the leading pack.
The unpredictable weather along the western coast of Alaska has made for an unpredictable race, with top teams battling storms and bad visibility into the Koyuk checkpoint. And Channel 2's Patrick Enslow is in Unalakleet and has the latest. Hi, Patrick.
Nikki, the team to beat on this year's trail seems to change by the day and sometimes even the hour, like we found out last night. Now, Nick Petit struggled to keep his lead overnight after leaving the Unalakleet checkpoint at 6:55 on Sunday, battling storms from Shagluk to Koyuk along the Norton Sound, backtracking at points because of low visibility, allowing your Leifsef Olsson to arrive first into the Koyuk checkpoint, with Petit and Seavey following close behind, leaving all 3 teams with a chance to be first down Front Street.
For iconic musher DeeDee Jonrowe, this year's Iditarod was meant to be a farewell tour. Instead, it ended at Rainy Pass, a few checkpoints earlier than planned. Although her Iditarod career has now come to an end, Channel 2's Blake Essig says the legacy she left behind will not soon be forgotten. Blake?
Well, Nikki, she isn't second-guessing her decision to scratch at all this year. In fact, she really seems to be enjoying the idea of life after the Iditarod.
You know, I'm having, like, the time of my life.
Getting the chance to see DeeDee Jonrowe and Unalakleet during the Iditarod isn't unusual.
Thank you, man.
You bet.
But this time, it's different.
I'm called to Alaska, and I could not be happier.
She's now serving as an ambassador and spectator instead of competitor.
I wanted to give you a hug. Good job.
Since 1980,
She's the queen of the Dalzell Gorge. One last time. DeeDee Jonrowe is at Iditarod 46.
DeeDee Jonrowe started 36 Iditarods, finished 32, and cracked the top 10 16 times.
I had been involved in every Iditarod except 10, and you know, there's been some of them that have been amazing and some of them that have been amazingly difficult.
Jonrowe says this year's race falls into that amazingly difficult category. Soaking wet and recognizing her health was beginning to fail, she pulled the plug at the Rainy Pass checkpoint.
I went to dry out, and I was actually a lot more dehydrated than I thought I was. And I was kind of slurring my words, and it became apparent that fluids taken orally weren't going to really be enough. And at that point, I made a call that, you know, I was gonna withdraw from the race and I was gonna accept IV fluids.
While she says the fluids helped, she became violently ill with a stomach bug a short time later, recognizing that continuing on would have likely put her and her team at risk.
I went to dry out, and I was actually a lot more dehydrated than I thought I was. And I was kind of slurring my words, and it became apparent that fluids taken orally weren't going to really be enough. And at that point, I made a call that, you know, I was going to withdraw from the race and I was going to accept IV fluids.
She's since recovered and is now spending some time in Unalakleet, her home away from home. And the people here are thrilled she's back.
We are very, very proud to be hosting this.
Holding an appreciation ceremony for the iconic musher.
None has been as special as DeeDee has to the community of Unalakleet.
Who has meant so much to Alaska, and in particular, this community.
If anything, I just want to encourage them in what sometimes could be a discouraging setting, and because there's no place on earth I'd rather be. Good! I love this.
Sharing memories, taking pictures, and simply spending time with people.
Really special.
Whose lives she touched.
Thank you. That is so cute. Yeah.
Well, DeeDee's Iditarod career is now complete. She says she has all sorts of ideas for what's next. Things like continuing to train her dogs, working with service dogs, and creating a program that helps seniors feed their dogs. Reporting from Unalakleet, Blake Essig, Channel 2 News.
All right, thanks, Blake. Such an amazing woman.
They are getting closer. For the race leaders, just 2 checkpoints stand between teams and the Burled Arch in Nome.
Channel 2's Nikki Carval is at the trail tracker set with the beginning of the end of the race. Nikki.
Well, Mike and Rebecca, 3 of the top 5 mushers are resting on their last break in White Mountain. One of them is already on his way to safety, and finally the finish in Nome. But there are plenty of visitors already there for a lot of reasons.
These guys, it was just a girls' weekend time to get spring break. All my friends are in Cancun, but I chose to come to Nome, Alaska, which is awesome. But just a bucket list, once-in-a-lifetime experience. So it's.
For some, it's the trip of a lifetime, and for others, it's the start of an annual tradition. Visitors and volunteers alike are getting ready for the first musher to cross that finish line.
Once you're here, you can't stop. So it's a wonderful thing. We go up here and volunteer down in the dog lot, make sure the dogs are all taken care of up here on the chute, and make sure no bad people get in. So.
And one of the people trying to get into that chute as the first musher crosses is Channel 2's Patrick Enslow. He's already there in Nome with an update from the trail. Hi, Patrick.
Nikki, this race has lasted 9 days, and your life, Seth Olsson, is currently in first place, covering 921 miles of trail. Now, the Norwegian musher made it from Elam to White Mountain in under 7 hours, but as history tells us, anything can happen between there and Nome, with mushers Nick Petit and Mitch Seavey trailing. Now, the chase pack is not far behind as well, with Ray Reddington Jr., Richie Deal, Pete Kaiser in a tight race for the top 5.
Well, I knew they could do top 5, but I mean, we haven't finished yet, so a lot of hungry teams on our tail. Richie's close behind here, and Ray's not too far in front, so we might change our order a little bit before we finish. But
Nikki, it's a 77-mile run from White Mountain to here at the finish line in Nome. Now, we are expecting a team late tonight or early tomorrow morning, so a very exciting time. Nikki?
All right, thanks, Patrick.
The cheers are starting to get louder, so I imagine he's probably getting pretty close. And there he is. I see his team. He has crossed the finish line. Your life, Seth Olsson, Iditarod 46 champion. Congratulations to him. It was all about the roar for your here this morning in Nome. Now, your life, Seth Olsson, winning Iditarod 46 after a comeback on the coast to beat Nick Petit. The 31-year-old's defining moment came between the Shaktoolik and Koyuk checkpoints when he passed the then first place Petit. A storm on the Norton Sound made it difficult for mushers to find the trail, and Petit would backtrack 7 miles, while Seth Olsson navigated his way through the storm and, to his surprise, ended up in the lead.
I left Shaktoolik with a pretty good feeling, and then I was surprised to get to Koyuk with being in lead there. And unfortunately, Nick had taken the wrong trail, so he's going to be thinking about that for a long time.
I got to the place on the GPS, it says there's a trail, but I did loops and there's no trail where there's a trail on the GPS. Went back where not the same path, but same direction I came from, just still looking for a trail. Eventually I saw a trail marker.
Your became the first non-CV to win the Iditarod since John Baker in 2011. Reporting from Nome, Patrick Enslow, Channel 2 News.